So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second segment of Evil Eye. Does it exist, and how can we avoid it? So last week we established that it does exist. This week we want to establish how to avoid it. We gave examples of concerns, whether it was our ancestors, whether it was sages in the Talmud, whether it was in the prophets, or whether it is in Shulchan Aruch, in Code of Jewish Law, of avoiding different activities because of the concern of evil eyes. So we have proven that it exists and the sages were concerned about it. Tonight I'd like to speak more about how to avoid it. So we quoted the Mishnah, a famous Mishnah, that Ayin hara, ve'yetzer hara, ve'sinat habriot motzi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam, evil eye, ve'yetzer hara, and the evil inclination and hatred towards other people are the three elements that remove a person from this world. Causes a breakup in one's interaction with people. When one has an evil eye, it not only could possibly damage the other person, but it most definitely damages them. And we established that why should we be concerned about evil eye when it's I often tell my children, my wife, my family, that sometimes you have people who are aggressive or sometimes people have problems. It's their problem. The best thing that we can do is identify that it's not my problem that someone has an issue or someone is aggressive or something. It's their problem. And when you recognize and identify it's their problem and it's not your problem, then you learn how to handle with it much better. Then the only problem is, the only course of action is how to handle ourselves. We cannot handle other people. We cannot control other people. The only thing that we can control is ourselves. So why should we be concerned about someone else's problem who has an evil eye? Perhaps is jealous. Is not happy for another human being. A lot of it has got to do with our conduct. So there are two things. Who is prone to be the recipient of the evil eye? And who is prone to be the giver of the evil eye? This is what I want to speak about a little bit today. We mentioned from the Mishnah that there must be a correlation between the three concepts, Ayin hara, ve'yetzer hara, ve'sinat hinam. Because the sage, the Tana, puts them all in one category, and he uses the Vav, amehaber, the Vav, the letter Vav that joins, must be that all of them are tied in, which means to say that the evil eye and the evil inclination and the hatred of others. So who is prone to receive the evil eye? Is someone who, our objective in life is to be able to do good. Our objective in life is to be able to utilize everything that God gives us, our eyes, all of the qualities that God gives us, our means, our blessings, our parnasah, our wealth, use it for the good and the benefit of not only ourselves and our family, but use it for the benefit of the world. If we, God forbid, use our wealth in a manner that causes others to be jealous of us, or in a manner that causes others to feel belittled by our behavior, or that we become arrogant because of the blessings that really, really don't come from us, it comes from God. There's a very interesting verse in Eshet Hayil that we say. King Solomon praises a wife, a woman, an Eshet Hayil, a woman of valor. And really the whole Shir HaShirim and the Eshet Hayil is all about the relationship between God being the symbolic, the husband, and the wife, the symbol of the Jewish people. And he says a very interesting verse, and he says, Sheker ahen vehevel hayofi isha yirat Hashem hititalam. False is beauty and vain is charm. A woman who fears God is to be praised. Now, what's so bad about beauty and charm? The whole world is built upon. Everybody, if you buy a car, same price. You want to buy a nice-looking car rather than an old jalopy like they say in America. Beautiful tree, beautiful pot plant. You'd rather buy a nice lime. You'd much rather buy a nice lime than a lime that's got bruises and stains all over it. Right? Beauty, it's pleasing to the eye, it's attractive, it's nice, it's a good thing, it's a wonderful thing, it's a blessing, it's a gift. Why does King Solomon say that sheker ahen vehevel hayofi, false and vain is beauty and charm? Because they are gifts from God. They're not yours. And therefore, by extension, it's not just beauty and grace that is false and vain and empty. It's any gift that God gives us. Any beautiful gift that God gives us, be it wealth, be it talent, be it intellect, be it whatever it is, comes from God. And if it comes from God, you did not work and strive and toil to achieve it. It's a gift, and therefore it's false. It's God-given. It's not yours. In other words, no praise is given for something that's given to you. Quite often people say, oh, nice suit, when you buy a new suit, people say, oh, a nice suit. I always say, I didn't make the suit. The compliment doesn't belong to me. The compliment belongs to the person who made the suit, which is truly the case. So what did I do? I went to the shop, I bought it, put it on. Oh, I'm going to be feel proud about it. You're a fool. Of course, the person always has to look like a mensch, always have to be dignified. But what compliment is there complimenting me on the shoes that I bought? Oh, really nice shoes. And for me to be proud of it is nonsense. It's emptiness. It's vain. It's falsehood. So to any gift that God gives us. God gives us wealth. How many people are very, very clever? How many people are very talented and have not struck it rich? And how many people are not necessarily so gifted or so clever and have struck it rich? They one time interviewed the very wealthy Jewish family from Montreal. I forgot the name. Something Reich. The Reichmans. The Reichman brothers were extremely, extremely wealthy. And they interviewed them. And they said, how did you get so wealthy? And they said, with a lot of thought, a lot of planning, and with a lot of mazal. And if we would have had more mazal and less thinking, we would have been even more wealthier. They understood where blessings come from. Where wealth comes from God, comes from mazal. Of course, you got to do and try what you got to do and what you got to try. But true blessings comes from God, and there's nothing to be boastful about. And if you then you are then boastful, then all you're doing is attracting upon yourself the evil eye. You are a prime target, so to speak, for the evil eye, because you're using your wealth the wrong way. You are involving your wealth with your own personal ego, with your own yetzer hara, with your own evil inclination. And this is the connection between ayin hara ve'yetzer hara, evil eye and the evil inclination. There is a correlation between the two. Both the recipient and the possible recipient and the possible giver. We'll get to the giver in a minute of the evil eye. Look at Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest of all prophets that we've ever known in history. Yet the Torah records, God himself records, and attests to the fact that he was the most humblest of all men. Here's a man who reached the highest level of prophecy, and he was also considered a king. As we learn about soon in the Torah, that special trumpets were made only for the time of Moshe Rabbeinu because he had the level of a king. After Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, those trumpets were never used again. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was not only the level of a prophet and the leader and the teacher of the Jewish people, but also the level of a king. Yet God himself attests to the fact that he was the most humblest of all men. This is what we have to strive for. So by using God's gifts to make another person feel bad, to belittle another person, to cause another person to be jealous, we don't have to walk around with torn, ripped clothes and shoes, but we don't have to be boastful. If you're boastful, you're abusing that which God entrusted you, whatever it is, whether intellect, whether wealth, whatever talent that you have, be careful. Because our objective is not to abuse what God gave us. The objective is not to make another person feel bad. Our objective must always be to lift up another person, to make them feel good about themselves, to help other people. And as we mentioned last week, not to be stingy, not to be miserly, not to hoard your wealth for yourself, not keep it for others, because that could be a prime target for the evil eye, as we mentioned before, because you are involving your blessings that God gave you with your own selfishness and greed. And that is no good. So this is the target. This is what causes the target. Causes us to be, God forbid, the targets for the evil eye. By not using the wealth or the blessings or the talents that God gave us the right way. I remember reading a very moving story. It has a very telling message. A young lady who was not yet married, who was looking to settle down and get married, came from a very wealthy family. And time came, she had a friend who was a bit older than her and was finding it difficult to settle down and find the right man. It happens from time to time. You know, the Talmud says that kashe lo le'adam, kashe zivogo shel adam kikriyat yam suf. The Gemara says that difficult is the finding of a spouse like the splitting of the sea. What does it mean? How difficult is splitting of the sea? For God, the splitting of the sea is not difficult at all. So who is the splitting of the sea difficult for? It's a miracle. The truth is, every marriage is a miracle. But if you recall, the sages teach us that the splitting of the sea happened in a semicircle. Here the Jewish people were not going from one Sfatayam, how do you say Sfatayam? From which one? Shoreline. From one shoreline to the next, they actually ended up on the same shoreline, on the same beach. Because really their objective was not to cross from one area to the other and they couldn't. God purposely directed the Jewish people to be trapped there, to see the miracle of the splitting of the sea, and to drown the Egyptians, to punish them for drowning the Jewish children. So there were 12 tribes, so there were really, the crossings of the Jewish people was in 12 different crossings, 12 different levels. So as the people cross, what happens in a semicircle? What happens when you go in a semicircle around? There'll be ones on the inside, ones on the outside. There were those who the miracle was very short for them. They came in, they came out. Half an hour, they were in and out. There were those on the outside, took them 45 minutes, or however long. Others took them 2 hours, 3 hours. So the ones on the extreme took longer. And perhaps this can explain what does it mean that a person finding a spouse is like the miracle of the splitting of the sea. Some get it straight away. Some things are easy and smooth. Some take some longer. But eventually when it does happen, you see God's miracle all along the way. You see how everything was for a purpose and for a reason. You're able to see and appreciate the divine providence. Not always do we appreciate it when we go through it. So this young girl became engaged, and she felt bad for her friend who was older than her, was trying to find a match. It was taking much longer. She felt very bad for her. But she got married. All of the guests came to this very wealthy wedding and began to mumble and whisper to themselves, and some of the very close friends of the father of the bride came up to the father of the bride and said, "What's going on, Moshe? What's going on? Why didn't you tell me?" He says, "Why didn't you tell me what?" He says, what do you mean? What are you telling me what? Look around you. I mean, this is your only daughter, and you waited a while to marry her off, and everything is on the cheap. The flowers was the minimal possible. The menu was very simplistic. Everything was from the lowest level wedding, not on the level of this wealthy person. Why didn't you tell me you're going through financial difficulties? I would lend you money. I would have given you the money. You're good friends. We grew up together. We did everything together. We did business together. We made money together. The father started to laugh. He says, oh, no. It's got nothing to do with that. You see, my daughter has a friend. And the friend has not yet got married, not yet got engaged. And see, she felt bad if she makes an opulent wedding and a special wedding, even though that she's my only daughter. And even though she looked forward to getting married, and every girl dreams of this day, but she didn't want to make her feel bad, so she wanted to do it as least as possible, as minimal as possible, just what's necessary, just what's required. What a feeling, even though that they could afford much more, even though that they could do much more. What a sensitive person. That's how you use the wealth and the blessing that God gives you. Not to take out and gorge out someone else's eyes. Not to make yourself feel better than anybody else. And guess what happened? A miracle happened. A month later, that girl also got engaged and found her intended spouse. I would not be surprised if, because of the sensitivity and the care and the concern of her friend, of her younger friend, in that merit, that helped, that blessed her friend, her older friend, to find her intended spouse. This is the attitude. This is the attitude that we must develop. So this is a person that is prone, God forbid, to be the recipient of Ayin Hara. What about the person who's prone to giving Ayin Hara? Who is prone to giving Ayin Hara? A person who is prone to giving Ayin Hara, if you want to have an indication, God forbid, that you could possibly fall under the category of harmful Ayin Hara, and as we mentioned before, well, what do I care? What do I care if the guy gets Ayin Hara from me? No, we mentioned before that the giver of Ayin Hara is the one that suffers the most. The one that looks upon a person with an evil eye, with a greedy eye, with a bad eye, with a jealous eye, with a judgmental eye upon another person. Why is he deserving? Why does he get it all? That's more harmful to the person. So we have to be very careful. First of all, we don't want to damage and harm anybody, even indirectly. We must take responsibility for it. Can you imagine you sticking out your foot and someone trips over your foot? You're responsible. You dug a hole and someone falls in the hole, you're responsible for that. You're responsible for damage for someone else, God forbid. If we even indirectly cause damage to other people, we must bear the responsibility. Never ever must we ever cause damage and harm to another human being. So we have to be very cautious and careful of that. So we have to be careful not to be prone to look at another person in a negative way or with an evil eye. And who indeed could be a person who would be prone to giving evil eye? That would be the person who, again, referring to the Mishnah, Ayin Hara, Yetzer Hara, Vesinat Habriot. Someone who is prone to having Ayin Hara is someone who follows the dictates of his heart. Someone who does not get along with other people. Someone who separates himself with other people. Someone who makes other people hate him. Someone who aggravates and agitates people all the time, always judges people, is always negative. That is a person, that is an indication. If you have that, God forbid, that is an indication that you could be prone to giving Ayin Hara, and you will be held responsible for possibly causing damage to others, and you will be causing damage to yourself. Our objective in life, if divinely ordained by God that you meet someone, give a good word. If you're a person who can't give a good word, who always is, lefargen, someone who can't stand it when someone else is successful, can't be happy for another person, In Hebrew it's called lefargen. Fargen means to be happy, to rejoice when someone else is doing good. If you're not that type of person, if you can't give a good word, if you're always negative and always putting down, always criticizing, you're prone to giving ayin hara. Because it's got to do with sinata beriyot, with hatred towards other people. Everything is always negative. Everything is always no good. And then such a person is prone to always look at another person in a negative way and an evil way, and he will be held responsible. Because a person looks at another person with an evil eye doesn't mean automatically the other person will be a recipient of an evil eye. As we spoke about it a little bit last week, but as we will speak about more at length this week, if a person holds himself in a manner of the righteous and conducts himself in a manner of the righteous, he will automatically ward off evil eye. But we'll speak about that a little bit later. How to ward it off. But it's not only the evil person, the negative person, the person who can't be happy for another human being's success, can't rejoice when another person is doing good. What do you care that another person has it good? He has better than you. Be happy with what you have. Because if you don't, you're lacking belief and trust and faith in God, that He runs the world and He knows what He's doing. And that you're given whatever set of circumstances that you have is tailor-made exactly for you to be successful in what your objective in your life is to be. What's the point of giving you things that you don't need or are counterproductive to what you need to achieve? It's like you go to a shop, I'm giving my son money to go to the shop, and because he sees I'm giving him so much money, he goes and he buys me, eggs. I don't need eggs. Go back to the shop. Get me the flour, I told you. I need the flour. God sends us in this world with a mission. And He gives us whatever we need to achieve this mission. In a previous life, we could have very well been wealthy. In a previous life, we could have been very well been poor. In a previous life, we could have been very well smart. Or other talents. Every lifetime that we go through particular circumstances, tailor-made for what we need to achieve, what tikkun, what rectification we need to rectify in our life, in our existence. So what are you jealous of another person? It's not going to help you. It's not what you need. It's not the mission that God gave you. But it's not only that. It could also be someone with so low self-esteem. People with low self-esteem are always blaming other people for their problems. And they're not happy with themselves. So because they're not happy with themselves, they cannot be happy with someone else. They cannot be happy with someone else's success or seeming success. They're always negative. They're always grumpy. It's always bad. It's always no good. Because they have a low self-esteem, a low self-worth of themselves. They're not able to gauge how precious they are in the eyes of God, and that they have gifts and talents, and they have things to contribute. Not everybody has to be a leader. Not everybody has to be Yaakov Avinu. Each of the 12 tribes were different. There was Yehuda, the leader. There was Yosef. There was Reuven, an introvert who spent many, many years fasting and contemplating. There was Zvulun, who was a very good merchant. There was Dan, who was strong. Everyone was different. Everyone had different talents. So what, I'm going to be jealous of Dan, what he has? Dan needs to be Dan. And Zvulun needs to be Zvulun. And Naphtali needs to be Naphtali. Yisachar needs to be Yisachar. He has to be the scholar. So he's not well off. He's not meant to be well off. If he was well off, he wouldn't teach. Like we find, by the way, in the Leviim. The Leviim were extremely, extremely devoted to the service of God. Extremely. In the most harshest and difficult of circumstances. Even in the times of Yeravam, where he excluded them from the service of God, they still went to live in Jerusalem, and because the 10 tribes split from the 2 tribes in Jerusalem, they experienced a lot of suffering. because there wasn't that many people to support them. Yet they remained loyal to God, and they served God, and they taught the people, and they did their task. But when they were exiled to Babylon, and when Ezra called them back, many Levim did not come. Kohanim came, but many Levim did not come. Why? Because they weren't in the temple. The temple was destroyed. So they began to be like everybody else, and they began to earn a livelihood in the manner that every other person did, and they were quite comfortable and successful in what they did, and they were complacent. So many of them didn't leave. They said, we're going to go to Israel now, and then we're going to be devoted now in the temple, and we're not entitled to own any land, and we have to totally spend our time teaching and learning and serving in the temple, and we are going to be totally dependent upon other people. And it's not simple. It's not easy to be dependent upon the recipient of other people's kindness. Because sometimes to receive from others is not so pleasant, it's not so nice. Who needs it? And so that temptation was too much for them, was very great. So a lot of them stayed in Babylon. They didn't come. And they were chastised and criticized for that because they did not serve their function. Why God brought them to this world. So too, the person with a low self-esteem has to understand that he has a mission and that he's precious in the eyes of God. Whatever it is, whether he's a simple person, or he may be a scholar, or he may not be a greater scholar than someone else, as great as a scholar as someone else, may not be as wealthy, or he may be wealthy but not talented in other areas and he's jealous of the other. The mind sometimes plays tricks upon people to capture him in the clutches of the evil inclination, to cause him to be depressed. To have low self-esteem is one of the worst things that you can have, because then you're not motivated for anything, to achieve what you need to achieve. You're not motivated to serve God. You're not motivated to do the right thing for your family. It's a very bad thing, very negative thing. Such a person could also be prone to be the cause of Ayin Hara, because he will always look bad upon another person, because he doesn't see good in himself. He's not able to see good in others. It's a very bad thing. So how do we ward it off? How do we ward it off? How do we avoid Ayin Hara? There are those that say, what do you mean? Ignore it. Don't give it any credibility. Don't give it any importance. It exists, but don't wallow in it, which is true. You know, these people who are always, I know, this guy's thinking about me, this guy's like this and like that, and always worried. And it's true. Maybe the Ayin Hara is more imagined than what it really is, because every little thing happens. Ayin Hara, I fell. You fell because you didn't look. You were so concerned that someone was looking at you bad, the wrong way. You didn't see a rock and you fell. If you wouldn't have been so concerned about Ayin Hara, and you would have been walking like a mensch, you would have seen the rock, you wouldn't have tripped, you would have been okay, wouldn't have fallen. But some people are so consumed by it that they're not living a proper life. Maybe that's also what the intention of is. Ayin Hara, imagined Ayin Hara, motzina ta'adam min ha'olam, remove a person from the world. You can't live like that either. I would prefer to have a balanced approach. When I say, yes, ignoring it, but ignoring it in which way? What does it mean? What do you think? You're just going to ignore it, but you're boastful? You're arrogant? You think you're just going to ignore it and it's going to go away? You think you're not going to attract people's attention when you treat people with disdain? When you have sinata beriot, when you treat people with hatred, and then you cause them to hate you or cause them to have ill feelings? Not good to cause other people to have ill feelings against you. It's not a good thing ever. Avoid it. So what do you think? Oh, I ignore it. It's just going to go away. It's like closing your eyes from someone who's shooting an arrow your way. It's not going to help. You've got to move out of the way. You've got to do something to protect yourself. So I would advocate a very strong sense of belief and faith in God. and that do you believe that everything comes from Hashem? By doing so, you achieve another concept or another level, and that is removing as well the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination that would be responsible for attracting the evil eye in the first place. Meaning to say, live humbly, discreetly, not boastfully. Share what you have. Be kind, be generous, be loving, and be giving. When the more you develop your faith and your belief in God, the more that develops as well. Because that's what God wants of us. And by practicing these concepts, this is what, and automatically you will then ignore the evil eye, because you're propelling yourself to a totally different level. You're becoming under the jurisdiction of God. Remember, in the first shiur, we mentioned the concept of Sar Tzilam. There is a divine protection over every single one of us. But if we behave in a manner that is not divine, then the divine protection is removed. And God then will use different tools to correct us, to reprimand us, to bring us back on the proper road, on the proper path. And Ayin Hara will be that tool, one of the tools that God will use, can use, and may use. But if you are enveloped by God's protection, then it can never harm you. Because the most evil eye person will never be able to harm you, will never be able to even help you, even if he wanted to help you, or do any good to you if God did not destine it. And most definitely not harm you if God did not desire it, or God's protection is upon you. And therefore absolutely ignore the evil eye, but ignore it in the positive way. Ignore it by being on a much loftier level, on a much higher level. Improve yourself. And when you come in contact with people, speak good to them. Make them feel good, because the divine destiny brought you together to improve, to build, not to destroy. To say a good word, to uplift someone. Oh, you did that thing last time, it was very nice. That poem you wrote, that article you wrote was very, very nice. Instead of saying, I've seen better. Make the person feel good. What it hurts you to give a compliment. How important it is. How many people give compliments to their spouses? You know how important it is? Make them feel good. Missing a bit of salt. Bit of pepper. The one that I did last week, it's much better than this. Give a compliment. Who cares about the soup? No, we care about the soup. I'm saying, who cares about the food? Care about people more than the food. Care about people more than the item. It's not easy, because we get so focused on the material that we forget about the emotions of people. Focus and care more about that. It's much more important than the material. How many times have we heard other people's feelings for a material, silly, stupid thing? But the feelings of a person, the individual who's created in the image of God, we damaged, we harmed. We're worried about a scratch on the chair. We're worried about a scratch on the car. You can fix. And it doesn't last forever. But a scratch on someone, make him feel bad, that we don't care about. That scar could cause a lot of damage for a long time. Sometimes it cannot be fixed. But we'll worry about the scratch on the car, on the seat, or on the this, or on the that. The stain that you made, oy vavoy. I'm not saying not to worry. I'm not saying don't reprimand kids when they are being irresponsible. It's upsetting when people are irresponsible. But do it in a way that you try not to hurt another person's feeling. And if you did, because we're human, and because we make mistakes, and because we react without thinking, it's normal, it happens. So recognize, acknowledge, and fix it for next time. And minimize it for next time. It takes a lifetime to improve. And because we didn't improve tomorrow or the next day, don't give up on yourself. Oh, it didn't happen. I heard in the shiur, and I heard of this, and I read in the Torah, and I read this, and then tomorrow I didn't behave like that, so we give up on ourselves. Never give up on ourselves. Every inch, every millimeter that you improve is a beautiful thing. It's another inch, another millimeter that we come close to Hashem. Another improvement of the world, that we've refined the world. Not long to go for Mashiach to come. Really, really not long to go, if anything. Little things make a big difference. So don't give up because you haven't perfected. You didn't get to the ideal. That's not the right approach. It's interesting to note. So how do we protect ourselves from Ayin Hara? We protect ourselves by living our lives according to the ideals and principles of Torah and the way God wants us to live. Live a life of righteousness, then automatically Ayin Hara will have no control over you because you have divine protection. And it's interesting to note, and this is what I want to get to, the blessing that Yaakov Avinu gave the two children of Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe. What did he tell him? He told him, Vayidgu larov bekerev haaretz. May you be as many as the fish. May you multiply bekerev haaretz amidst the land like fish. The question is, why like fish? Why not? You should be as numerous as the sand. The grains of sand. How many grains of sand? Have you ever counted grains of sand? Many. You never ever walk on the thing? You ever able to get out that last grain of sand from your shoe? Never. It's like it's always there. It never stops. Another layer and another layer. Why did he bless them? Why did Yaakov Avinu bless them? Vayidgu larov bekerev haaretz, and you shall be as many as the fish. Because lo shalta be'eina bisha. Because the fish are generally not seen to the eye. Yes, they come up from time to time. Fish come up for breath. Fish come up to, eat something, to check the scene out, what's going on. I haven't been here for a while. But generally you don't see them. Generally they're there. So too we. We have to be like fish. From time to time, people see what we may see what we have. We may expose our talents from time to time, but in a modest way, in a humble way, in a hidden way, like the fish. You don't see the fish. You don't attract unwarranted attention. You don't attract the attention of people. That's a blessing. Blessing exists on something that is hidden from the eye, like fish. That's why he blessed them like fish. Now, why did he bless them like fish? Why did they merit to have this great blessing like fish, that evil eye cannot touch the children of Yosef? You know why? Because of Yosef. Because of Yosef. In the merit of Yosef. Why? In regards to Yosef, it says, Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Ale Ayin, which literally means, a pleasing son is Yosef, pleasing to the eye. Now, Porat comes from the word, Poriyah comes from the word branch, to branch out. So here you have twice Ben Porat Yosef, which means pleasing or beautiful, but it also means to branch out, to extend, to be fruitful, to multiply. Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Alein. A pleasing son is Yosef, pleasing to the eye. Why twice pleasing? Please everyone, no Ayin Hara, no. What happened, Shaul? The battery. So Ben Porat Yosef, so why does it say twice Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Alein? Twice the concept of beauty. Ben Porat Yosef Alein. A beautiful child is Yosef to the eye. Yosef was very, very beautiful. He was very handsome, to the extent that when Yosef would walk, when he was in Egypt, everybody fell in love with Yosef. He was very handsome. He was a slave in the house of Potiphar. the master's wife fell in love with him. He was very beautiful. Whenever Yosef would walk, when he was viceroy in Egypt, he would walk, the women would climb up high places to just get a glimpse at him. That's how handsome he was. That's how beautiful he was. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was also very handsome, very beautiful. One time he was in the river bathing, and there's someone by the name of Resh Lakish, Shimon ben Lakish, who was a bandit, who came and he looked at Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and he said, "Oh, he's handsome, he's so beautiful." And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was not only beautiful and handsome and a great scholar, but he was a good judge of character. He had a very sharp eye. And he saw this individual, which was a bandit, and he saw his true potential. Like Rabbi Akiva was a very simple person, didn't know how to read when he was 40 years old. But Rahel knew his true potential, and he became one of the greatest scholars of all time. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai saw this bandit who was about to steal his clothes. And he says, "You think I'm beautiful? Wait till you see my sister. If you study Torah and repent, I will give you my sister to marry." And Resh Lakish, Shimon ben Lakish, was so awestruck by the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he thought it was a fantastic deal. I'm going with this deal. So he decided, what's the worst that could happen? I'll give it a try. I'll study Torah. I'll do the right thing. And I'll end up marrying a wonderful, beautiful woman who comes from a very famous and scholarly family. Can't be wrong. And in fact, he became so great that he became not only a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, but he became his contemporary, his equal. And he became the famous Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, or Resh Lakish. So Yosef was very beautiful, was very handsome. But despite being so handsome and despite being so beautiful, he overcame temptation, he overcame sin, he overcame his evil inclination. Because he overcame, he ruled the eye, so to speak. Because he was in a place that he was very beautiful, was very handsome, people were chasing him to cause him to sin. He did not err once. He did not diminish his sanctity once. Wherever he went, he maintained his faith. Wherever he went, he maintained his humility. The same Yosef, who was the brother of the righteous, the son of Yaakov, the star disciple of Yaakov, was the same Yosef that he was in the house of Potiphar, amidst a temptation. Was the same Yosef that was thrown into the dungeon, humbled. Was the same Yosef humble when he became viceroy, the second most powerful person in the world at that time. Was the same Yosef, the same righteous Yosef that could have had all of the wealth and all of the riches and all of the temptation and all of the desires before him. Was the same Yosef who was the disciple of Yaakov Avinu. He did not allow his eyes to tempt him. Because he did not allow his eyes to tempt him, the great sage Rabbi Abahu reads, "Al tikra ale ayin, ela ole ayin." Do not read the verse, because the verse could lend itself, there's no vowels in the Torah. So you could read the verse as follows: Ben Porat Yosef, a very pleasing son is Yosef. Ben Porat, a very pleasing, a beautiful, Ole Ayin, instead of Ale Ayin, pleasing to the eye, Ole Ayin, he rises above the eye. Because Yosef rose above the eye, because Yosef controlled himself, because Yosef was not lured by the eye, he became above and beyond the eye, to the extent that when Yaakov Avinu blessed his children, he blessed them that no evil eye will control them. Because he did not follow the what? What does it say in the Mishnah? Ayin hara, yetzer hara. He did not follow the temptations of the evil inclination. Because he did not follow the temptations of the evil inclination, because he was always humble, because he did not submit to temptation, because he was not lured by his eye, no eye can ever rule him. And incidentally, why it says twice, Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Alein, because the word Porat is connected to a branching or an extension of oneself. That's the two children, Ephraim and Menashe, who also were blessed and also lived in Egypt, which was a very decadent, immoral society at that time, and also maintained their holiness and sanctity, were an extension of Yosef. And because they were an extension of Yosef and his spiritual level, they also were blessed. They also controlled their eyes. They also conducted themselves in the manner of their father and their grandfather, even though that there were 2 lone Jews in Egypt, or 3 lone Jews with their father in Egypt. They could have easily assimilated. They did not. They were blessed like Yosef. Ole Ayin, they were ones that control their eyes. They're above the eye. The Gemara tells us that if a person wants to be spared of Ayin Hara, he should hold his thumbs like this. Hang on a minute. Like this. And he should say, Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Ale'ayin. I am from the children of Yosef, who the evil eye does not control me. If you are a disciple of Yosef, if you are a spiritual child of Yosef, that you control your Yetzer Hara, that you control your eye, that you don't look around and see what I can grab from this world, and be jealous of others and greedy of others and want to eat with your eyes, like they say. You know, people looking, what can I get? What can I grab? What can I get out of this situation? If you're not like Yosef, you live humbly. And if you don't look at temptation and want to grab the temptation, as the sages tell us, that the eye leads a person to desire, and then the desire, the heart, leads a person to sin. They are the 2 openings to the evil inclination, the eyes and the heart. That's why we say every day in the Shema, "V'lo taturu acharei lebavchem v'acharei." You should not follow the dictates of your eyes and of your heart. Then you too will also be spared Ayin Hara. You too will also be spared the evil eye. Because you will be like Yosef. Because Yosef was above the desirous eye, he is above Ayin Hara, other people's desirous eye. But there was also one more quality to Yosef, if you recall. He did not have sinata beriot. He did not hate others. His brothers did bad to him. He did not judge them ill. He said, no, don't be upset. God sent me here. God sent me here on a mission. He knew and understood that God sent me. It wasn't the brothers. The brothers didn't do him harm. God sent him here, and ultimately he came here to sustain his father and his father's family and the family of his brothers and their children and children's children, and to pave the way for what was destined for the children of Jacob to come to Egypt, and to pave the way for the exile and to prepare for the exile, which he actually did. He cushioned, he softened their coming into Egypt. And he appreciated this and he recognized this. He didn't have a hatred in his heart towards his brothers. Such a person is spared Ayin Hara. Because as we said, Ayin Hara, the Yetzer, and the evil inclination, Vesinat Abriot, and hatred of other people, Motziin et ha'adam min ha'olam, remove a person from the world, which means that they're all equal, but they're also intertwined and connected. When does evil eye is effective? Where there is Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and hatred of other people. When you don't know how to behave with other people properly. Don't know how to share. Boastful, arrogant. You achieve your money through treading on other people. Through hasagat gvul, through changing the boundaries, impinging and poaching upon other people. As the Torah says, Arur masig gvul rehu. Arur, cursed is the person who poaches, who changes the boundaries while he's not looking. Here is his boundary, here's his fence. move the fence, or takes his customers away, or steals from another person. Cursed is such a person. He's got his eye on the other person's success. No blessing. V'sinat hinam, when you don't look well towards other people, you're not happy with their success. All of these cause ayin hara, all of these attract ayin hara. But when you're above all of them, like Yosef, when you're above the temptation of the evil inclination, when you're above your own jealousy and greed and how you look at things, with a desirous eye, with a temptation of the eye, when you don't get along with other people, don't respect other people, that could also attract ayin hara. And this is what we learn from Amar Rabbi Abahu, Al tikra ale ayin ela ole ayin. Don't read the verse just the way, in its literal way. Ale ayin, that Yosef is pleasing to the eye because he was handsome and beautiful. He's pleasing to the eye because he maintained his dignity and spirituality. Ole ayin ela ole ayin. But he was above the eye. When a person conducts himself in that manner, then no evil eye can ever control him. Therefore, in summary, we are responsible for not only our physical damage that we cause other people, but spiritual harm. The eye is a very powerful tool. It is a great gift from God. We have the ability to look well and good upon other people. We have the ability to see great spiritual things. The more one protects one's eye, the less one sees impurities and the like, the more one is able to have more clarity of vision, to see things and read things the right way. And as we quoted from the Hiddah last week, why does it say ayin hara, ayin in the singular, evil eye? It should say evil eyes. What? We use both our eyes to see. So when you're looking at something, you close your eye. When you look at him, when you're jealous, you look at one eye. No, you want to see everything. You want to see as much as you possibly can. You want to grab as much as you can. The Hiddah writes, because a person who has evil eye, or a person that can attract evil eye upon himself, is someone who only looks at the world with one eye, who doesn't look at the whole picture, who doesn't delve to the spirituality and the core of our existence, and understand why we are here, what's our mission, and how God runs the world, and how we should always strive to be worthy of God's protection. Don't look at the world with one eye. Look at the world with two eyes. Try and see the whole picture. Appreciate the whole picture. Don't misjudge other people because you don't know the situation. You don't know what they need to achieve. You don't know what they were brought into this world for. You don't know what they're going through. Don't look with one eye, because these are the ingredients that can attract and that could cause ayin hara. And we are responsible for that. And we will be paying a price for that. Even though that we may not cause damage to others because they conduct themselves in the manner of Yosef. But we are responsible for that. And we, God forbid, will cause damage only to ourselves. If you want to ward off ayin hara, you have to conduct yourself like Yosef. Walk humbly like Moshe. Use an opportunity to, when interact people, to conduct yourself in a good way, in a respectable manner. Cause others to like you, not to dislike you. Don't treat people with disdain because you don't care. You can't get anything out of him anyway. What worth is he? What value is to me? So what the hell? I'll just speak with him and tell him, get lost, or whatever the case may be. That is prime target, such behavior for ayin hara. That removes the protection of God, and if God so chooses, will use that as a tool to put you back, to bring you down a notch. Remind you that you're not high and mighty. You're not almighty. Relax. Take it easy. So strengthen our faith, strengthen our bond in God, behave properly. That is the best protection for Ain Hara, and that is the best protection for not, God forbid, causing other people damage as well. Thank you for coming, everybody. Are there any questions?